everyone, this is Jean from Happy Indulgence, and today I'm here with my February wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I read during the month, which isn't too much. I read 5 books, and I talk about my thoughts on each and every one of them. As always with my wrap-ups, I'm going to be talking about the books I love the most to the books that I love the least, and let's just get started. The first book that I read and loved is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. There's no dispute how much I love this book, only because of Nikolai Lantsov, and I loved hearing everything that had happened in the aftermath of the Grisha trilogy, everything that's happened in Ravkar, and you can kind of follow along with the characters to see where they've ended up. Like, it pays homage to the original series, so if you've read the original series, you will absolutely love this book because it follows the characters that you love. It talks about what's happened a few years on, and it also references the events of the first books. I love Nikolai. I just think he's just such a smart, intelligent, charming character. I'm completely in love with him. I love following Nina and her new journey in Fajeda, or whatever it's called. And I love Zoya most of all in this book, surprisingly, because she really comes to her own as a Grisha. So I will leave you guys to a link to my King of Scars review where I talk about this a bit more. It's a spoiler-free review if you want to hear my full thoughts on the book. And of course, I gave this 5 stars. I also read Fence Volume 2, and if you guys haven't heard of this graphic novel series, it's actually written by C.S. Pacat. C.S. Pacat actually wrote the Captive Prince series. What I love about this book, even though I don't know anything about fencing, I'm not a big sports person, is just how diverse it is, and I love the characters, Nicholas and then his opponent Seiji. So this series is basically about fencing, and I love the art style. It feels like a Japanese anime. There is a lot about fencing, but I love how it feels like such a high stakes competition. Nicholas is basically not a very talented fencer, but he has a life goal to defeat Seiji, who is like basically the best ranked fencer in the whole school district. And in Fence Volume 2, they're basically going through a tournament to see who will be ranked. So it was really interesting because there were a lot of twists and turns on who would beat who. There are a few new characters called Adrian, who is like the star of the whole school. Everyone loves him. And there's also another undefeated character. And it was interesting just to see them preparing for their fencing competitions and pitting against one another, and the fangirling and everything that happens for these fencers. So I really enjoyed Fence Volume 2 and gave it 4 stars. Next book I read is Bloodwitch by Susan Dennard. It's been a long time since I read Truthwitch and Windwitch, so to be honest, I can't remember completely what happened in both of these books, and I think that actually affected my enjoyment of this book. So I read Sight Witch last year, and I can remember that a bit more because that followed Ryba, who was a Sight Witch, and they're pretty much like psychics, and she does make a really minor appearance in this book, and it was also a like kind of standalone companion novel. So Bloodwitch follows Aiden, who has the power of killing people by constricting their veins and by just thinking about it. And he was one of my favourite characters from the original series in Truthwitch. It was really great following his journey and just seeing his childhood, and even just hearing things from his perspective was really great. What I love about this series, even though I can't remember too much about my thoughts on the original book, is how deep the world building is. Oh my gosh, there's so much to it. There's people with elemental powers like, you know, the Wind Witch and stuff like that. You also get like the Truth Witch, which is Safi from the original book, and then you have Isolde, who is a thread witch, and she can see like threads of time, and it's all really complex, and it's a really interesting magic system as well. Bloodwitch was a really great read because we do get to see Safi and Isolde and see everything that they're going through in the series. It is a very dense book though, because I actually read this when I was really sleep deprived, obviously as a new parent, and I can't remember too much about it. I do know I really enjoyed it. I love seeing where all the characters have ended up, like Merrick and Isolde and Safi and Aiden. Windwitch didn't contain as much of each and every one of these characters as I would have liked, so it's great to see them more in Bloodwitch. So I did end up enjoying this one despite not being able to give it a great review, and I gave it 4 stars. Next book I read is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. listen. So I actually reviewed this recently on my channel. I'll link you guys up above and down below to the full review if you're keen on hearing my spoiler-free thoughts on the book. So this was actually my first Brandon Sanderson read, and it follows a girl called Spencer who really wants to become a pilot, and she does everything in her power to become one or to undergo flight training with the rest of the Skyward Academy. It was really interesting because it's set on a different world. There's a lot to do with spaceships and aviation and flying and piloting. And they're also being attacked by aliens called the Krell. So often when they're doing flight drills, it will become the real thing, and the Krell will come to attack, and they'll just have to dispatch the pilots and everyone they have. I really enjoyed Skyward because, like, I haven't read anything like this that is so focused on the aviation. It also features an AI character called M-Bot, which is a spaceship that talks, that tries to emulate human emotions, so that was interesting. But there were a few reservations I had with it. I thought the pacing was a bit slow. It lacked a lot of character development and world building, and it was a bit predictable at times, but it was still a good time. So I gave this one 3.5 stars. I also read In an Absent Dream by Seanan Mcguire, and I listened to this one on audiobook, and this is actually the 4th companion novel in the Wayward Children series, and these are novellas, so they're really quick reads, but they're also really magical and whimsical. So the first one was Every Heart a Doorway, which follows a bunch of children that ends up in a different world. Basically, they need to embrace each and every one of them, and they can be whoever they want to be. So this one follows Catherine Lundy. She is a girl who is a bookworm, and she's an introvert, and she really likes to follow rules. She's like a good girl. So then she finds the perfect world in the Goblin Market, which is run by a set of rules that she must follow. And there's a lot here that talks about fair value and of trading as well. And she actually learns that she prefers this Goblin Market to the human world that she lives in, where she can't predict anything. But then she makes a friend with someone called Owl, and she ends up wanting to protect her and to use the concept of fair value to protect her friend Owl. So In an Absent Dream was a really magical and whimsical book. It was probably my 3rd favorite of the series, I'd say. I wasn't a big fan of Beneath the Sugar Sky, but this one was so magical. I love the concept of fair value, of the Goblin Market. It's written so beautifully, and Catherine Lundy, even though she seems to be a dull rule follower, it was interesting just seeing this world just tailored to her, and it was really magical. I gave this one 3.5 stars. So now onto the books that I'm going to read during March, or that are on my TBR. The first one is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. So I've heard a lot of great things about this novel. It focuses a lot on rap culture. There's less about police brutality and more about someone who's labelled as being troublesome just because they're black. So I can't wait to discover more about Bree. I've heard a lot of great things about this book, and I really love The Hate You Give, so I can't wait to read this one. Next book, and this was also on my start of year TBR. Obviously it's still the start of the year, but that one's Heartstopper by Alice Osman, and this is on my TBR because I've heard great things about it, and it's a quick graphic novel read as well, so I'm pretty sure I can smash that out. And this is why my TBR is so short for March. I'm reading The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and this is a dragon fantasy read, and I have heard that it has a really complex world when it comes to the dragons and the east meets west part of the world as well, and it's a really deep standalone read. I have heard so many raves about it so far. It's also our name of the book club pick for March, and I cannot wait to read it. Even though it's over 800 pages, I'm really excited because I love delving into big books, especially if they're so deeply involved like this one, and I can't wait to read this one. It's probably going to take me months to read, obviously because I'm not reading as much as I was before, obviously taking care of the baby. But yes, that is my TBR. These are the books that I read during February 2019. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on each and every one of these books. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks guys, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.